The Utah desert is breathtaking, red cliffs, winding canyons, skies that stretch forever. But it's also merciless. In 2019, 3 young campers set out here for a weekend adventure. By Sunday night, their tents were still standing, their fire pit was still warm, but they were gone. No tracks, no bodies, not a single clue. For 3 years, the canyon kept its silence. And then, one morning, scientists listening deep inside a remote slot canyon recorded something chilling, a sound. Rhythmic, deliberate, as if someone or something was knocking from the other side of the stone. This is the story of Sarah, Mark, and David, 3 friends who vanished into Utah's wilderness, and a haunting sound that may be the only trace they left behind. Their names were Sarah, 24, a recent college graduate with a love for photography and an adventurous streak that often carried her far from the safety of sidewalks. She was the kind of person who paused to capture wildflowers blooming in cracks of stone, who climbed ridges just to see how the horizon looked from another angle. Her cousin Mark was 26, quieter, steadier. He worked as a mechanic back in Salt Lake City, his hands more accustomed to engines and climbing ropes, but he'd been Sarah's protector since childhood. When she suggested the trip, he agreed instantly. "Someone's ought to make sure you don't go hanging off cliffs for a picture," he joked. The third was David, 25, a lifelong friend of Mark's, known for his humor and restless energy. He wasn't experienced in wilderness survival, but he loved the idea of adventure. One weekend in the desert, he'd said, "What could possibly go wrong?" That Friday, they loaded Mark's pickup with camping gear, tents, sleeping bags, cooking supplies, and a cooler packed with food. Sarah brought her camera equipment. David carried a new journal, promising he would finally write something epic. They told their families they'd be gone until Sunday. 2 nights. Nothing unusual. The drive took them south through endless stretches of highway, past red mesas and distant mountains, until the pavement narrowed into dirt roads. They stopped in a small town for supplies, water, firewood, snacks. A cashier later remembered them clearly. Sarah with her camera slung across her shoulder, Mark carrying a heavy pack of firewood, David cracking a joke about whether scorpions could chew through tents. They were smiling, carefree, ordinary. By late afternoon, they reached their chosen site near a canyon rim. It wasn't an official campground, but Sarah had researched it online. A flat stretch of land with views across miles of sandstone cliffs. They pitched their tents, lit a fire, and settled in for the night under a sky crowded with stars. The next morning, Sarah photographed sunrise, her camera clicking as the first light painted the cliffs orange and gold. Mark brewed coffee on a small stove. David scribbled in his journal. They spoke to a pair of hikers passing by, exchanging friendly greetings. The hikers later told investigators that the trio seemed relaxed, excited for the weekend. By afternoon, the 3 ventured deeper into the canyon system, carrying day packs with water, snacks, and Sarah's ever-present camera. That was the last confirmed sighting. When Sunday evening came and went with no return, families grew concerned. Calls to their phones went unanswered. By Monday morning, the truck was found still parked where they had left it, tents pitched, fire pit ringed with ash. Nothing disturbed, except for the absence of Sarah, Mark, and David. Search and rescue teams mobilized immediately. Helicopters swept overhead, their rotors thundering across the desert. K-9 units sniffed for trails, their handlers leading them through brush and across slick rock. Rangers rappelled into slot canyons, shining lights into narrow crevices. Volunteers scoured miles of desert, calling their names, listening for echoes that never came. The scene puzzled investigators. The campsite looked normal. Backpacks with extra supplies remained. Food was uneaten. Phones were left charging inside the tents. Sarah's camera bag rested by her sleeping bag, lenses carefully wrapped. It was as if they had stepped away for a short walk and never returned. Days stretched into weeks. Flyers were plastered on gas stations, rest stops, and trailheads. Families gave tearful interviews, pleading for help. News crews broadcast live from the search site, their cameras capturing the vast, unforgiving landscape where 3 people had vanished without a trace. As searches dragged on, theories began to surface. The first was the simplest, an accident. Utah's canyon country is stunning but treacherous. Slot canyons can narrow into stone corridors barely wide enough for a person. Flash floods can surge without warning, even on days when skies above are clear. Perhaps Sarah, Mark, and David had been caught in one, swept away in walls of water and mud. But no storms had been reported that weekend, no flood debris found. Another theory suggested they had fallen. Canyons are lined with cliffs and drop-offs, many unmarked and unstable. A misstep could send someone tumbling hundreds of feet. Searchers rappelled into countless ravines, finding bones of deer, mountain goats, but no trace of humans. Speculation darkened. Some whispered of foul play. Could they have encountered someone dangerous? The desert attracts wanderers, loners, even fugitives. In the absence of evidence, every possibility grew louder. Online forums buzzed with conspiracy. Some claimed the trio staged their disappearance, planning to vanish and start new lives. Others suggested cult involvement, pointing to mysterious gatherings rumored in remote desert areas. A few even invoked the supernatural, weaving legends of spirits tied to the land. The families, crushed under uncertainty, refused to give up. Sarah's mother walked the canyons with volunteers, holding her daughter's scarf to her face as if to keep her close. Mark's father sat by the truck each evening, staring at the horizon. David's younger brother scrawled messages on rocks near the site. Come home. Despite the heartbreak, no evidence surfaced. By winter, official searches slowed. Helicopters stopped circling. Volunteers returned to their lives. The canyon grew silent once more, and silence lasted not days, not months, but years. For 3 long years, the desert held its secret. Families marked birthdays and anniversaries with candles and prayers. Investigators kept files open but inactive, noting occasional tips that led nowhere. The story faded from headlines, replaced by newer tragedies. Yet for those who loved Sarah, Mark, and David, the pain never dulled. They had vanished into a land that remembers everything in stone and silence. And then, 3 years later, the silence broke. A team of geologists working in a narrow canyon miles from the original campsite had set up sensors to study seismic activity. The canyon was remote, rarely visited, known more for its strange acoustics than for hiking trails. As the equipment recorded the usual shifts and rumbles of stone, one sensor picked up something unusual. A sound, faint, rhythmic, and unlike anything they had captured before. At first, the scientists thought it was interference, equipment malfunction. But as they replayed the recording, their unease grew. The sound echoed like deliberate movement. Some compared it to a human voice carried through stone corridors. Others said it resembled knocking, measured, purposeful. The canyon had spoken, and its sound would reignite a mystery thought long buried. The scientists replayed the recording again and again. In the hollow quiet of their lab, the sound seemed even more unsettling. A canyon that should have been silent had produced a pattern, faint but deliberate. Some described it as a knocking, others as a voice distorted by stone. Whatever it wasn't natural, and it wasn't supposed to be there. When word reached investigators, the reaction was mixed. Some dismissed it outright. Echoes, they said. Wind passing through narrow walls, amplified and distorted. But others felt a chill. The sound had been recorded near a canyon system less than 30 miles from where Sarah, Mark, and David had vanished. Could it be connected? The families clung to hope. Sarah's mother said through tears, if there's even a chance that it's them, we have to know. Mark's father, once stoic and reserved, broke down when reporters asked what he thought. I don't care what it takes, he said. We need answers. Investigators reopened the case. Teams were dispatched to the canyon. Equipment was set up to replicate the scientists' recording. Microphones and sensors lined the stone walls. Drones hovered, mapping the narrow passages where sunlight barely touched the floor. For days, the canyon was silent. Just the hum of wind, the occasional call of a raven, the shuffle of boots across rock. Then, on the 3rd night, as temperatures plummeted and the desert sky filled with stars, the sound returned. 3 distinct knocks. Pauses. Then 3 more. The pattern repeated, faint but unmistakable. Some thought it was mechanical, like metal striking stone. Others swore it was human, an intentional signal. Whatever it wasn't random. Theories exploded. One possibility was that the sound came from geological shifts, stone cracking, echoing in narrow corridors. But geologists pushed back. These were not random creaks or groans. They were patterned, repeating, too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Another theory suggested equipment interference, but multiple sensors from different manufacturers picked up the same pattern at the same time. Then came the darker theories. Had Sarah, Mark, and David somehow survived? Trapped in a cavern, cut off from the world, sending signals through stone? Rationally, it seemed impossible. 3 years had passed. No one could endure that long without food, water, or rescue. And yet, the human mind clings to hope even when reason falters. Others suggested foul play. Could the sound have been staged? Someone trying to mislead, to keep the mystery alive? But why? And who would venture into such a remote canyon to orchestrate a hoax? As experts debated, the families were left suspended between grief and hope. Sarah's camera, untouched in her tent, was the last record of her presence. Mark's steady humor, David's restless energy, all memories frozen in time. And yet, the canyon sound felt like a voice calling back across the years. Search and rescue teams returned in force. The canyon was combed, every crevice explored. Ropes lowered rescuers into chasms where sunlight never reached. Dogs sniffed along ledges, their paws slipping on smooth rock. Drones ventured deep into corridors too narrow for humans. What they found was haunting. In one narrow passage, far from the campsite, searchers discovered fragments. A rusted buckle from a backpack. A torn scrap of fabric, weathered but recognizable to the families. Sarah's mother wept when she was shown the photo. "That's hers," she whispered. "I know it is." Forensic teams collected the items, analyzing every fiber. DNA confirmed the fabric had once belonged to Sarah. But beyond that, the canyon yielded nothing. No bones, no belongings, no clear evidence of what had happened. The sound persisted, recorded again and again, sometimes louder, sometimes faint, always in the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more. Like a code, no one could decipher. News spread quickly. Headlines screamed of ghost knock from Utah's canyon. Documentaries speculated about paranormal connections, spirits trapped in stone. Others dismissed it as natural acoustics, amplified by imagination. But for the families, it was simpler. The canyon was speaking, and they had no choice but to listen. Theories multiplied online. Some claimed the trio had been victims of a flash flood, their bodies carried into hidden caverns. The sound, they argued, was water echoing against stone. But meteorological records showed no floods that weekend. Others believed they had encountered someone dangerous. Perhaps their disappearance wasn't an accident. Perhaps they had been taken, hidden, their traces erased. Could the sound be connected to those who silenced them? A few clung to hope they were alive, trapped in a place no one had yet reached. Impossible, investigators said. And yet, in the hearts of grieving families, impossible still meant possible. 3 years of silence had left them desperate for any answer. As the investigation deepened, pressure mounted on law enforcement. Families accused authorities of giving up too soon, of failing to explore areas now proven significant. If they had searched there earlier, Mark's father said, maybe we wouldn't still be waiting. Officials defended themselves, pointing to the vastness of Utah's canyonlands. Thousands of square miles, countless crevices. Searching it all was impossible. The canyon sound became both a beacon of hope and a wound that refused to heal. Scientists studied it with sophisticated equipment, analyzing frequencies, mapping echoes. Some concluded it was entirely natural. Others insisted it defied explanation. But the truth, as always, remained out of reach. 3 years after Sarah, Mark, and David vanished, the desert returned not bodies, not answers, but a sound. A sound that continues to echo through stone corridors, taunting families, haunting investigators, and reminding all who hear it that the land never forgets. The canyon holds its secret still. As we close this story, we are left with questions that may never be answered. What happened to Sarah, Mark, and David? Did they stumble into danger the desert concealed? Were they victims of the land, or of something far darker? And what is the sound that pulses from stone, a geological rhythm, or the final echo of three voices lost in the wilderness? The truth may remain buried in silence, but memory keeps them alive. And now, I turn to you. What do you believe? Was it an accident, foul play, or something stranger still? Share your theory in the comments below. Every voice adds to their memory. Every thought keeps the case alive. If this story captivated you, subscribe to Cold Crime Chronicles. Every week, we uncover haunting mysteries, unsolved disappearances, and chilling echoes of the past. Subscribing ensures you'll never miss the next case, and maybe, together, we'll find the truth. Don't let Sarah, Mark, and David's story fade into silence. Share this video, add your theory, and join the community determined to remember. Because when the missing are remembered, they are never truly gone.